Hi, my name is James Orvis, and this is the third and final video of this week where we are looking at drum programming. So we've covered the sound selection side of things and setting up drum buses and cleaning up sounds and making sure they're mono compatible. And then the second video, we looked at the drum programming itself, like inputting the Midi notes and things to think about when doing that. And then finally, we're just going to look at the making sounds within this more interesting, so adding effects, whether that's delays, more saturation, reverbs, and things like that. And then we're also going to look at like setting up some send effects as well, so you can input some automation or record it in to add moments of interest or suspense or release. So yeah, let's have a look into this now. So what I'm going to do actually is we're just going to go through each sound because there's quite a few things going on, and I need to go through and have a look at what we've got going on with each one, and I'll just explain it as we go. So first we'll have a look at the toms. I don't think I've got any. Oh, I've got this on the toms actually. So on this sound, we've got this echo boy set up, and it's adding like a little flange kind of sound to it. So it's just changing the tonality of the sound a little bit. So this is the original. A little bit muddier, I think, without it on. Just got rid of some of the low end, and it's just added a little bit more kind of like, it's just changed the tonality of it. I kind of prefer it. So yeah, that's just it for the toms really. Like most of the processing with effects was done on the other elements. So first we're going to look at the claps. So the claps, I've got these two, which I mentioned before, like synced up. So them two work together, and then what I wanted to do is add a bit of reverb to kind of glue them a little bit. So all I've done for this is just use Valhalla Vintage there, which I found works really nicely on claps. So I've added a bit of pre-delay. I've got the dirty plate set in, and then we've coloured it 1980s. I usually go with 1970s. But I found it was a bit tinny, a bit like slappy in the top end, so the 1980s one kind of dulled it down a little bit. And then obviously used the EQ high cut to just pull back on the top frequencies. And the result sounds like this. So it's just got a bit of thickness. Now we had reverb on the drum bus itself, but I felt like the claps needed an extended reverb because the one on the drum bus is very, very short. So I wanted something that was a little bit longer to make the sound thicker. So that's what I've got going on that. And then with the other sounds, I've got this one here. So it was the snare fill. And then for the snare fill, I wanted to add a bit of a slapback delay. There's like a stereo slapback, and I used Echo Boy for this and found this preset called 80s Snare Slap. And I don't know if you noticed, but I use presets quite a lot. It tends to get me where I need to be quickly, and also I find surprising things that I wouldn't normally go for. For instance, this preset, I wasn't actually after that. I was just trying to find something that would thicken up the snare sound, and then I landed on this, which leaves the original snare sound intact while adding this slap effect on the stereo spread. Really cool way to make the snare really wide as well without actually messing up the mono compatibility of the sound. So we've got that going on there, and then this sound, I used PSB Sprin. So I really like this when I want to add a bit of character to a sound, but I don't want to mess up the original sound. Like Sprins are really good for this. So it just adds a little bit more of a tail on the end. So I'll turn the wet all the way up. That's what it sounds like. It's like a metallic kind of flavour to it. So that works really nicely. And with these kind of things, it's just kind of sweetening the sounds a little bit more just to make them sound nicer and fuller. And then next, we touched upon the hat delays before. So you can switch these on and you get this. Just to help with the groove. Now I explained it in the previous video, but if you didn't watch that, what I did was found this preset Dancing Plex, which worked really nice. Then I played around with the timings, changed one of them to dots. And then I played around with the groove and the feel settings. So it adds a bit more swing and adds a dragging feel to it. So this within Echo Boy is amazing for this kind of stuff because you can really play around with that. If I reset them, So you can make it like shuffle and have more kind of swing and things like that. It's really, really cool. So I'd highly recommend using that for hats. So yeah, we've got that going on, which is the delay for the hats. And then let's see what else we've got. So yeah, we didn't really go through this properly in the last one. In the first video, I touched upon it a little bit. But I mentioned that some sounds like hats and things like that, like this one here, I wanted to make a bit wider. So I'm using Ozone Imager, and then you basically switch it on, turn Stereo-Rise on, and then you can boost this width. And you've got a meter there which tells you how wide you're going. So we can go super wide with it. But then that'll just mess up the mono compatibility, make it sound quieter when it goes to mono. So around there sounds quite nice to me. But yeah, it's just a way of like making some of the sounds like a bit wider and a bit more exciting. So I also did that on this hat, and I also did it on the ride. Actually, I didn't do it on the ride because it was already quite wide, that one. So yeah, there's the toms, the claps, and the hats, like some subtle effects going on there. And then moving on to the percussion. Got this sound here. I felt like it was too abrupt, so what I did was I put a delay on it. So we've just got quarter notes in ping pong, and then I put this on tape delay, set it to analog mode, and I also panned them. I tend to do this quite a lot with delays actually. So the panning, instead of having it all the way wide, I bring it in a little bit. And for me, that just means that when it does go to mono, you're not kind of dropping the signal a lot, because the wider you go with sounds, it kind of boosts the level of them as well. So yeah, that just works really well for me. I tend to do that quite often. So yeah, that was just to kind of add a bit more to that sound and delay it a little bit, so it carries on a little bit longer. Then we've got this. Felt like it was too dry, even though we've got a bus reverb on again. So again, what I did was send it through the spring with a much longer decay this time. And that again just adds that metallic spring vibe, but also makes it just more exciting compared to the original. Sounds like when you knock a guitar amp with a spring in it. Next, I've got this sound. So without that on, it sounds like this. And that was basically just to kind of add a bit of width. So what I've done there is I've used a simple delay. And we touched upon this technique before in a previous video. And it basically adds this like slapback effect. But what you do is you have left and right channel, and you delay one more than the other. And then it creates this pseudo effect called a has effect, which sounds like this, makes it sound really wide. And you've also got that really nice kind of metallic feel to it as well. So I just layered that in with the original. It's just to thicken up that sound a little bit more. This sound here. So a little conga type sound. So what I did was just use this effect called Brookside in Guitar Rig and tweaked around with it a little bit, because when you first pull up this preset, it's like full on. What I wanted to do is pull back some of the feedback times, also pull back on these spring reverbs as well, because they were really super long, and I just wanted this nice kind of little, just this little delay effect at the end. So that was quite nice. You should find using Guitar Rig for stuff like that. It makes it sound a little bit more organic and real, and a lot more analog as well. The next sound we've got is this one. Again, use this simple delay idea with a has effect, because I thought it was too abrupt. What I found was that with this one, I wanted to make the delay times a little bit longer, and also turn the feedback right up and the wet as well, to get this like really nice shuddery effect. So what I'm going to do now is just do a quick A/B test with all of the effects in, and then, without the effects on. So we've got the dry version, and then I'll switch them on. So just look out for this little button here. When that switches on, I'll switch it on. And that switches all of them on, because I've got it set up to a Midi controller. You can hear the difference. So before it's going to sound like quite abrupt, and then once I put it on, it just fills those spaces and makes it groove a little bit better. So yeah, it's quite a subtle difference, but makes a big difference really in terms of the groove, and just thickens out the sound a little bit more. So if you're finding that you're writing, if you're writing drum loops and you're finding that you've got a really good groove going, but it just doesn't sound thick enough, and you're trying to squash it with like compressors and stuff to try and maximize it and thicken it out, just add some like effects like that in there, just to kind of like just to fill up the sound basically. And there's nothing you can do as well. So I noticed that, like, I forgot about this. You can draw automation into the Midi clips as well. So on one of the percussion samples on one of the spring boxes, what I've done is automated the time, so like the decay of the sound. So the first hit's like really long, and then the second one it pulls back, so it's really short and gives that push and pull feel. And you can automate like all of those effects within your Midi loop as well, so you can create some really interesting stuff there. Now we've done that, I want to look at some other effects that we can use. So what I tend to do on a lot of my drum bus groups and things like that, like kicks and drums, is to put this little filter on. So I just made it myself. Basically, it allows me to switch from high pass to low pass using that, and then I've got resonance and a little filter knob there. So I can do this to the kick. Or I can switch it over. And it just makes it, when I'm playing with the track or recording, I can record those in. So I can do that, and then also I've got it on the drum bus as well. So I just find it really handy to put those on as well. And then I also want to look at the sends and returns. So we've done quite subtle effects within each track, and now I want to look at kind of big sounds for when we do drops and builds and things like that. So I've just set up 3 here that I find quite useful. I tend to use these quite a lot. So the first one is this reverb wash. And that's been sidechained to the kick as well, so it's ducking when the kick comes in. And I use this just sort of a little spot effect, so you can quickly open it up on a clap or a snare, or use it in a big build section in conjunction with like the filter. You could filter it down and open up the reverb, kind of like DJ effects really. And also with that, you can draw that within the clip. You can draw that just on the clap, so it opens up there. And the next one is this dub delay that I like to use quite a lot. So I used this in previous example in another video, and it was on a website by this guy called Orex. You can go on there, download it, or you can just look at these settings and copy it. So it's a ping pong delay, got a saturator in there, an auto filter which moves to get that dub feel, and then we've got a reverb and again compressor sidechained to the kick. So this sounds like this. Again, just really nice to add like a bit of interest into the mix and add little spot effects and stuff like that. And then finally, one that I really like to use quite often, which is Valhalla's Uber mod. I like to use this on percussion because it allows me to create moments of tension and things like that. So I've got this set up which modulates the delay time. I've got feedback, and then I've got some other things here which I don't tend to use that often, but you can change it to sync mode or free. I like to keep it in free because then it sounds like a tape delay when you're moving it up and down. And then again, that's sidechained again to the kick. So I've got a bit like EQ and a gate there to stop it as well. So it sounds like this. And also with that, so you can use it as that's kind of like make it kind of open up and modulate and stuff like into a build. Or you can use it like in a way that like Dubfire and Rich Orton use it, where you create that little rattlesnake thing like on snares and things like this. So you can just use it to create little moments like that. So yeah, I mean, with the returns, like you can keep going and add in more extra stuff in there, but these three tend to do it for me, work quite nicely. So there we've just gone through effects, and now let's listen to the loop with everything in, and I'll play around with the returns as well. Turn this one on. So there we go, 3 videos where we've looked at programming drums, how to find sounds, how to kind of tweak them and make them fit into your projects. So fixing like the tuning, mono compatibility, also looking at how to program them, looking at things like call and response and how important that is to make catchy drum loops. We've also looked at how to sweeten up the sounds even more by adding little effects to kind of fill them out and things like that, and also looking at how we can improve the groove by adding like delays and things like that. And finally, looking at things like return and sends and how we can use them with our drum bus to create interesting moments that kind of help when it comes to making builds and transitions. Hope you found this really useful, and I've given you a bit of an insight into how I like to go about creating my drums basically. And this is like a tried and tested way that I like to go through every time. I'm constantly like adding new little ideas and tweaking it a little bit. But this method, it's a really good kind of like starting point just to get you making your own drums. And usually actually I won't just solely create my drums with single hits. I've done this for this tutorial, but I also like to use a combination of that and loops as well. So like now I feel like maybe I could add some more shakers and things like that in there to kind of progress it a bit more, and I'd look through like the Audiotent packs to look for loops and maybe cut stuff out that works really nicely with it. Loops are great actually. Like if you're stuck with your drum beat and you kind of just, it's not really progressing anymore, you've kind of got to a point where it's stagnating a little bit, but you want a little bit extra, then loops can be great for that. Like just flick through loops and you'll get inspired and find some extra layers that you can add into your drum beat. So yeah, there you go. If there's anything that you would like us to cover in upcoming videos, please let us know in the comment section below. If there's any tips or tricks that you do that you'd like to let myself and the rest of us know about, please do that, because I find them really inspiring. So my name is James Orvis. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.